everyone. Welcome back to Adobe Live. My name is Ellie, and today I'm here with Whitney Anderson. Hi, Whitney.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So good to have you. I'm so excited. We're going to be working in Illustrator today. Whitney's going to be working on a brand refresh, and we're going to have so much fun. So make sure to come over to Behance and watch so that you can jump into the chat and ask questions and interact with us. It's going to be a lot of fun today. And make sure to check out the new Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge with Paul Tierney. It's every day at 11:30 Pacific time. So right before the stream, you can watch the replay if you missed it, and make sure to participate in those. It's a great way to learn new skills and just join the community. So yeah, let's say hi to the chat and see who's here. We have Voodoo Val in the chat, Mohammed, Gareth from Scotland. Hi, Gareth.
Hey.
Uriel, Kimmy, Katie. So excited to have all of you guys here. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and jump over to behance.net/live so that you can join the chat, ask Whitney some questions, and it's going to be super fun. So we can just go ahead and jump right in. Whitney, do you want to introduce yourself and show us some of your beautiful work?
Absolutely. So as Ellen mentioned, I am Whitney Anderson. I'm actually working out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin right now. I am a freelance designer, illustrator, kind of wear a lot of hats in the design world. But I've got my website up here to just kind of give you a taste of the things that I work on. I do a lot of lettering work, illustration work. Some of these are personal projects. Some of them are for small local businesses. I do a lot of just random doodles and stuff to post to Instagram for various occasions and events. I also design a lot of art prints, enamel pins, that kind of thing, and have a little online shop. So yeah, that's kind of what I work on the day-to-day. I do quite a lot of branding work, so that's what I'm going to be working on today as well. So yeah, should I get into what I'll be working on today?
Yes, let's get into it. Katie says that you're the first person that she watched on Adobe Live about 2 years ago.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Welcome back, Katie. And maybe Voodoo Val, if you're able to drop Whitney's stream from a couple years ago into the chat, maybe people can go back and watch that replay and see what you worked on then as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Super fun. I want to go back and watch it for sure.
That was a really fun one.
Cool. Oh, I'm sure. It was back when everything was live in the studio. So seems like a lifetime ago. All right. Well, yeah, let's jump into what you're working on today. I would love to see. It's for a client, right? Or for a friend who's a client. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Cool.
So the last live stream I was on, I actually did branding for a fake non-existent company. So it's fun this time to be able to be working on a real project. So I'm very excited.
So fun.
All right. So as was mentioned, I am working on something for a client who is also one of my best friends. This is her website. Her name is Covet Ginger, or her business name. Her name is Kim. She's wonderful and so talented. So yeah, this is her original logo. She started creating ceramics maybe, I guess, does this make me a bad friend? I don't remember how long ago. I think around 7 years ago-ish.
That's a long time. That's a long time. Yeah.
So she, is just in need of a brand update. This is some of her work. She works on a wheel, just traditional, wheel thrown ceramics. She makes mugs, vases, all kinds of fun, beautiful pieces. She actually posts a lot of throwing videos here on her Instagram as well. And you can see more of her work here.
Wow, so, that's so cool.
This is what I will be working on today and tomorrow. Today we'll kind of be digging into creating some brand marks, exploring a few different options there. And then tomorrow we'll be kind of applying that to physical, tangible objects. So like the business card, postcard, different applications that those brand marks will be used on.
Cool. It's going to be so fun. So
I'm excited.
if you guys have questions along the way, feel free to just drop them into the chat and we'll make sure to touch on those. If you have questions about Whitney's process, how she's using the programs, mostly Illustrator, right? We're going to mostly be in Illustrator.
Yep.
Yeah.
We might. We might do a little tiny bit in Photoshop, but yeah, mostly Illustrator.
Cool. So if you have questions on that, feel free to ask. And yeah, I'm really excited to see how this turns out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So before I jump into Illustrator, I wanted to just kind of touch on some of the things that she's looking for. I sat down with her, talked through what her needs are, kind of the applications of where this will be used. So she definitely will need it on her website. As you saw, that little website header that she had. She also stamps the bottom of all of her pieces when they're still wet. So it does like a little impression of her logo. So it's super important that she has something that will be really legible, even at a super small size.
Yeah.
She will also need a bag stamp. She does in-person events and packages things in these really cute brown bags and stamps all of her bags. So those are definite ones that she will need. Some other applications that might be needed would be business cards, thank you notes, maybe some type of sign for her in-person events, and then packaging. She didn't necessarily say that she needed it, but we're going to design it. And if she wants it and uses it, great. So stuff like tape, tissue paper, that kind of thing.
How fun.
Yeah. All right. I might be coming back to this document later on as we go throughout, but let's go ahead and get started. A few things that she and I talked about as well. She didn't really have a huge preference on what type of text style font her logo type was in. So I told her that I would just play around with a few different options. She said she was very open to script, serif, sans serif, kind of just whatever I thought looked good.
Yeah.
Which is also a lot of pressure, but
yes.
That's why I want to do a few options just so that she can still have a choice or an option in the matter. So I have here just a couple of sketches that I was working on. I did a few little marker scribbles. This is just like a brush pen and my handwriting on tracing paper. And then I also have here a couple of just like dots, speckles that I think I might want to use kind of as a background on business cards or postcard. So I have these just kind of as additional assets that I want to bring into the branding because...
And did you make those?
I did.
Okay.
So yeah, this is all like marker on tracing paper. And the first thing that I'm going to do to kind of get started in the design is bring these into Photoshop and actually make them usable vector artwork for myself. So I know that these days there are probably a ton of ways to create vectors out of non-vectors, but this is my favorite way to do it. So what I will do is open up. So yeah, this is just marker on tracing paper. I took a photo of it with my phone.
Nice.
If you have a scanner, that works even better. I do, but I know that not everyone does. So just wanted to show that this is totally doable with just a camera phone camera.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's make this as large as possible. Okay. So I opened up my photo in Photoshop. First thing I'm going to do is just make it a bit larger so that I have as much kind of detail and information in here as possible. I'm going to bump that resolution up to 300. Okay. Go to my adjustments, and first I'm going to go into brightness and contrast, trying to basically just get this pure black and pure white. So contrast, brightness, go back into my adjustments, and go into levels here, and then bump this up as well. That one, so that we've basically now just got pure black, pure white.
Nice.
So then in our layer panel, actually sometimes you'll get like red and yellow, like kind of blowout from the white. So we'll also go in and just make that black and white. Oops,
Okay.
not that one. Oh, here we go. All right, and then I will flatten everything. So yeah, as we can see now, everything's just pure, crisp, black and white. So I can grab this and make it a vector so I can pull it into Illustrator. So I will select, color range, make sure that I've got just the black selected. Okay, so if you zoom in, you can see that the black is all selected. From here, I'll go into the paths, and it's this middle button. It is, what is it called? Make work path from selection. This will sometimes take a few seconds as it's thinking, okay, that wasn't too bad. So then you can see it creates all these little nodes, all your little anchor points, so that you can save that. You zoom out, there's a lot of them on there. So once you're at this point, you can go ahead and save it. And to save it with all of these anchor points, you'll go to File, Export, Paths to Illustrator. Save that as a work path. And I'm in my paths. I made a folder already.
Nice.
We've got speckle, and save that, and it's saved. So I've got that one. I actually did 2 of these prior to the live stream just to save a little time, so we didn't have to do that 100 times. But I am going to do that with this one real quick as well.
Cool. Arabella says, what a cool texture. It sort of has a terrazzo vibe, which it does, and it's really cute. And then Arashful says that I think image trace would do the same thing. So yeah, you could use image trace in Illustrator to do that as well. And like Whitney said, there's so many ways to do the same kinds of things. So yeah, it's kind of your preference and how you prefer to do that. And Island says, I might have missed this. Is this a vector texture? So it was a texture that you made with a pen that then you vectorized in Photoshop, correct? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's now a vector texture, but it started off as just pen on paper and an iPhone photo.
Yep.
Voodooval asks, what was that feature called? Make work path from selection. Is that what the name of it was?
Yeah. So in the paths panel, it's the middle button on the bottom. I think that's what it's called. I can't hover over it right now. But yeah, I think it was make work path from selection.
That sounds right to me too. Thank you for showing us that.
Absolutely. So I'm just doing that with this script text here. Again, I did the same thing here. So this, originally was just brush marker on paper. And I want to create these into vectors that I can work with in Illustrator. So I just repeated those steps again while you were reading off some of the chats.
Yeah.
I'm going to, another thing you can do, because these, if you zoom in real tight, these ones are a little bit like crunchier, more pixelated than I want. So another thing you could do, go to filter, blur, and do a little bit of a Gaussian blur on this. Just a little.
Smooth out all of the edges. Yeah. Yeah.
So do a little bit of that. And then go back over into your adjustments, into your levels. And then I will kind of smooth that out to give it a hard edge again, but it's just a little bit softer now.
Yeah. Minimize all those anchor points.
All right, so now I can just select all of that color, that black again. There we go.
Nice.
Export paths to Illustrator. Save it. And then let's go open those up. I'm actually going to, we're done in Photoshop now. So I'm just going to close all these out so that we're not using up a bunch of space that we don't need to. All right, so I have created this folder already. So I've got all of those paths ready to go here. So I'm going to go ahead and open all of those up. They'll all open up in a separate document.
Okay.
Okay, so here's my speckles. You can see when I select them, I'm just going to make them black for now. If you want, you can, or if there's any like negative space that's supposed to be in here, you can go into this Pathfinder and use the exclude option. I don't know if there are any in this one or not. You'll see what I mean though when I go into, let's just go into the script. Okay. So here is my script that I just did that to. Make this black as well. So here you can see, you know, all of these little negative spaces. Pathfinder, when you do exclude, you'll get all of those spaces back.
Nice. Kimmy says, image trace can leave you with a lot of unneeded paths and points, and the technique that Whitney is using should eliminate those extra points. So yeah, and sometimes that's why people will do things different ways, because there might be a reason why it's easier to use image trace in this situation and it's easier to use this technique. You know, so that's why it's great to experiment with all the different techniques and see what works best for that particular project and the needs of that particular work that you're working on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that this just gives you a little bit more control too. You know, you can get really as much detail as you want just by making that file larger, and depending on your adjustment levels, you really can get a lot of detail. I've found that like I've even drawn something with pencil before.
Wow. Yeah.
And you can get that really like pencil-y texture, but create vector artwork with it. So yeah, I like it. I mean, I feel like it's pretty fast for me now just because I know how to do it and I've been doing it forever. But yeah, once you get the hang of it, I feel like it goes by super, super quickly.
Kimmy says it's a great technique to make your own brushes in Illustrator as well.
Absolutely.
So
Okay, so now I've basically just got a master document. These were some others that I had done previously using that same technique, just all ones that I hand wrote, hand drew, took a photo of, and went through that same technique. So here are a handful that I may or may not use, was just kind of putting ideas on paper. And then we've got our textures over here as well. These I will probably set aside, and we would likely use those tomorrow when we're working, on actual like print collateral, postcards, business cards, that type of thing. And today I really want to focus on creating logo type or some other brand marks.
Cool. Means you guys have to come back tomorrow to see the texture in action.
Absolutely. All right. These are all grouped together right now since I just brought them in, and I had to exclude that, the negative space. So since I did these all on paper and with a pen, you can see here, there's like inconsistencies here in the line work, which for a ceramic artist, I feel like that's quite fitting. I don't necessarily think that is the right call for everyone or every brand, but I really like it for these. So, I sometimes, if I needed him to be cleaner, I would take this, put it in a background layer, and then maybe just take my pen tool and create a smoother one right on top of it, using this as kind of just a guide. But I actually kind of like those little inconsistencies because handmade ceramics are little imperfect, have, some texture to them. So I feel like it's fitting here.
Yeah, it makes it look handmade, which
definitely
that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so of these options that I created, I think I might try playing with this one a bit. This one, and then I might just look at my font library as well, and look and see what I've got in there. See if I like anything. These just aren't really doing it for me right now. But I do want to give her a handful of options, or at least play with a few things.
When you're working with a client, how many options do you typically give them? Or is it kind of depending on the project?
It does depend on the client. I always give them more than one. I know that some branding agencies, designers do just give a client, they say, this is your branding.
Yeah.
I feel like I am not confident enough to do that at this point. And honestly, I get so attached to multiple options as well. Yeah. So I do like for the client to feel like they have some control there, and some, I guess, feeling of accomplishment, like they were the one who chose their branding, just letting them be more involved in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Island says, out of curiosity, since most brands are not ceramics, how could we make it cleaner? And you mentioned you could go over it with a pen tool. Would that be probably the technique that you would do with either of these if you wanted to clean them up?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And what I would do there is just pull this, make it like a lighter color. So like, gray or whatever. And I would lock it. So what is that? Command 2, I think. Command 2. So that locks it. Oops, I didn't do that. But that locks this so that you're not accidentally clicking on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, then I would take the pen tool and just start creating, make this black. So that you've got smoother lines and you don't have all of those little texture anchor points all the way around.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I would do in that case if I needed it to be clean. And then I would kind of just use this as my sketch or my like starting point.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. There we go. I always forget. I'm like, how do I unlock it? Command Option 2. Okay. So up here, I'm just I pulled my rulers out to try and kind of line these up, because when I drew them on paper, my baseline was obviously not perfect.
Right. Yeah. It was with your hand.
So yeah, I'm just going to kind of space these out a little bit. I might need to come back in later and work on sizing, kerning, if anything is way too textury, and doesn't fit with the rest of it. I might have to come and revisit that, but this is at least pretty close for what I need it for at the moment.
Yeah, looks good. Voodoo Val asked if there's any other designers who really inspire you.
Ooh, so many. Brett Stenson is a big one. He is out of Portland and does such beautiful work. He works in lots of different mediums too. He is a graphic designer, but he also does like wood carving and painting.
Nice. Yeah.
All kinds of cool stuff. He is a great one. Oh my goodness. There are so many. I feel like there's like 100 that I follow on Instagram that I'm like, you're so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a big inspiration. Another who I have been loving lately, well, not lately, for years.
Yeah.
Kara Sykes. She does a lot of illustration work as well, graphic design. Super, super, super talented.
Cool. Thank you. Justin says another quick way to clean up jagged lines is using Simplify. It doesn't always work, but it's a good approach to apply and see how it looks. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, Justin. Yeah. Again, there's so many different ways that you can play around with things and see what works best for that particular font that you're working on.
Absolutely. All right. So
Beautiful.
I've got a couple of like logo types here. Definitely we'll play around with each of them a little bit more. But what I like to do when I am designing a logo, doing branding, I kind of just want to get all of my options out so I can look at them and then kind of pull pieces from there. So I at least want to work with these two a little bit more, but then I also want to try and see what I've got in my font library that I like, that I think she might like.
Yeah.
So going to type in here. I'll make this bigger in a second. Okay. Covet and Ginger. One thing that we talked about when her and I were chatting is that I asked if she had a preference, because right now everything is lowercase in her current logo. And she does like that all lowercase. She likes the two G's together in lowercase.
Yeah.
She also said she'd be fine with all uppercase, but didn't necessarily know how she felt about like title case.
Okay.
So capital C, capital G, which I kind of did that. Oops. Here.
Sure.
But she's still got like, it's kind of a capital G, but it's not.
It looks more like a lowercase g, just larger. Which, so you don't get that kind of G, that G shape that she maybe wouldn't like. Yeah.
So when I am trying out these, I'm going to, try a few different fonts here. So I'm going to do a lowercase and an uppercase. Change case, uppercase.
Nice.
So that I can see, because some fonts look way better in lowercase, some in uppercase. Okay. So let's see.
Was she the one who said she wanted to use the plus sign instead of and, or was that a choice that you made?
I asked her and she said she was open to it.
Okay.
So that's another thing that depending on the type, I may, may do an
An
ampersand,
ampersand.
or she did say she didn't want it written out as
Okay.
AND.
Okay.
So it needs to be, some type of ampersand or plus sign
Got
or
it.
something symbol, I guess, and not typed out. So yeah, we'll try that. I don't really love that, but typically what I will do as I'm doing this is just copy and paste, go and try. Have a few really beautiful fonts that I have not gotten to use yet.
That's kind of fun to get to play around with them for a project.
Definitely. It's
Uriel
kind of
says,
fun.
yeah. Uriel says, all uppercase I feel would be better because then you don't end up with anything below the baseline, which is true, but kind of depends on the look that you're going for.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's a very good point. Typically, that is what I prefer to do when I'm designing. But, I think depending on what type of G it is too, like these Gs, I think are so beautiful. I think actually in one of my, like these are super, super fun with the double loop. So yeah, kind of just depends on the look they're going for. I think it can be fun, but yeah, since there's no descenders in the first word, I guess from a standpoint of balance, I guess just depending on how high the X height is, how much that descender drops down. Some pairings would probably look more balanced than others. Yeah. Like this feels like hardly even a G to me.
Yeah.
Because it's so the
descender is so small. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite places to get fonts?
I guess not in particular.
Okay.
I would say the majority, I spend a lot of time scrolling through the Adobe font library.
Yeah.
But I follow a handful of type designers on Instagram who will release their own fonts on occasion. So I'll buy fonts from small, like independent type designers. Actually, a few of these here, this one and this one at least, are from Brandon Nix.
Okay.
His Instagram handle is BM Nix. I guess I don't remember what his full name is, but his handle on Instagram is BM Nix.
Cool.
He's got a lot of really, really beautiful typefaces. This is one of those as well.
I like how that ampersand looks. It's so fun.
That's a really cool one.
That's really cool.
So like for this font, if I were going to go with this typeface, I would definitely choose the ampersand over the plus sign.
Yes.
Because I think it's way more interesting. Very beautiful. Let's try out a couple more here. That one's really fun. See, I love the G's, the lowercase G's here.
Yeah.
Like, I think even though these do descend, like this still feels pretty balanced to me. Yeah, I like the weight of the type. This is regular. This comes in light regular and bold.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I think this is a really beautiful, beautiful typeface. I think because this client is a friend of mine too, I'll probably end up showing her way more options than I would normally show a client. But yeah, I do want to create something that she feels like her. Yes. And even though, I mean, I think it might even be harder to design for a friend because you feel so much more pressure, but it's still very fun.
Yeah. And I think part of why it's hard to design for yourself is that you have that emotional connection to your work. And that can be the same with a friend too, where you have that emotional connection to their company and their brand because they're your friend. And It's kind of hard to separate that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if you are just joining us, I am here with Whitney Anderson. She is working on a brand refresh for a ceramics company. And so we're playing around with a logo right now. And if you're watching on YouTube, come over to Behance so that you can jump in the chat with us. It's behance.net/live. And if you have questions or comments, feel free to drop those in the chat and would love to answer those for you. So Voodoo Val asked, how many iterations do you usually send to a client?
So I will send usually, like I'll initially send, I don't know, usually around 3 options. Yeah, usually 3, sometimes 4, if I can't quite narrow it down that much. And then from that point, if like there's usually 1, maybe 2 options that they're feeling most strongly about. So we'll kind of, you know, if they have any small requests, edits, revisions, or if they like elements from a couple of different options, I'll allow 2 rounds of revisions.
Okay.
After that initial like set of options.
Cool. Thank you. Fausto says, I love the ampersand. It seems more elegant than the plus sign, but at the same time, the plus can give a more raw look, which works well combining with pottery.
Definitely.
It's true. Yeah. I think either could work really well.
So the more that I love a good script. When I am working on personal work, anything that I'm doing lettering for myself, pretty much always has script in it. But the more that I'm thinking about this and thinking about it in the bottom, like, you know, having to get stamped into clay on the bottom of something, I am a little concerned. I mean, I guess I could try and create a script option that's a little bit more legible. Because this is really just like loosely my handwriting. Just trying to think of this, you know, at a size of
really small,
1.5 inches maybe on the bottom of something. So maybe something that is serif or sans serif would work better in this instance. And then maybe we could use a script somewhere else on her thank you notes or something else, you know, something that isn't her main primary logo.
Yeah, absolutely.
So another thing that we had talked about, she would like some version of her logo that has her location in it. So whether that's, you know, made in Milwaukee or handmade in Milwaukee or just Milwaukee, Wisconsin. She did mention, you know, wanting some version that had that present in it. So probably not the most simple one that went on the bottom of the mug. Like that would be just that by itself. But then maybe for her bags that she's stamping or for her postcards, she would have a version that has something a little bit more like that.
Ariel says maybe for the maker's mark, like on the bottom of the mugs, or just the ceramics in general, you could use even just a C plus a G. It wouldn't necessarily have to have all of the full name, which is true.
Absolutely. Actually, when I was working on some sketching, pull that back up, I was thinking it would be kind of cool, like because the C and the G do fit together like this. Maybe something like one of those.
That's fun.
So yeah, I might explore that a little bit more as well, depending on what the final word mark looks like. I don't know if it would be too like disjointed from that. I guess I would have to make sure that, I don't know, that the C and the G of the full word mark look like this C and G, so that they still feel very connected.
Together.
But yeah, at least this concept, maybe I'll try and settle on a couple of word marks first, and then see if I could take the C and the G from those and create something kind of like one of these. Yeah, that's actually something that I didn't ask her or didn't talk to her about, if it was important for her to have the full name.
Yeah.
Or if she was okay with just the C and the G under there. So yeah, that's it'd be good to know from her.
Yeah, for sure. Aisha says, do you strictly rely on already existing typefaces, or do you do hand lettered text for branding too? And is there a specific rule for that, for when you could use hand lettered versus a typeface for branding?
So I almost always use hand lettered type for branding. That is just what I personally have done a lot of. So people know me as doing that.
Yeah, you
so
become
usually,
known for that. It's your style. Yeah.
So then when they come to me, they already know that I do that. They kind of know my style already. And that's what they're looking for. I would say that most everything that I make does have a little bit more of like gritty, handmade, not gritty maybe, but some type of handmade element within it. So even if it isn't the logo type itself, I will include like hand-drawn textures or hand-drawn illustrations, something that feels very unique, like it couldn't just be replicated by typing it out. And that's something that's pretty important to me. Once in a while, there will be a project that I work on where that just doesn't fit the brand. But I would say for the most part, I do try to include that somehow within all the branding that I do.
Yeah, I love that. And I know we were talking a little bit before the stream about how you have clients who come to you because that's what they see on your site and what they know that you can do. And a lot of that probably has come from doing your personal projects and building up your portfolio that way.
Yeah.
Which, I think that's so important. And then that's what's on your site. So when clients go there, they're like, okay, this is what Whitney does, and that's why I want to hire her. So you get to do more of the work that you want to be doing. So
absolutely. Yeah. So I think if you do have an interest in hand rendered type, definitely try using that, introducing that into the branding projects that you're working on or personal projects that you're working on. I think it's a really cool way to make unique branding. Not that branding can't be unique if you use just an existing typeface.
Of course.
That's not what I mean at all, but it is just a way to create something that feels a little bit more raw or handmade, for sure.
Do you have advice for practicing with type? Deepa says, hello everyone, loving the stream already. Just wanted to ask how I should practice typography and create my own fonts. So do you have any advice on, maybe even if you want to touch a little bit on how you started learning how to do hand lettered fonts, or how you kind of got into that?
Yeah, so it actually kind of started accidentally for me. Like in college, sitting in my lectures, not paying attention to the lecture or taking notes. But I just, I followed a bunch of letterers on Instagram. I thought they were doing really, really cool stuff. And I just started like writing the day of the week really fancy in my notebook. Or, just like looking at like antique stores. If you look at vintage packaging, there's so many examples and like inspiration of beautiful typography. So I would just start flipping through like books of old packaging, or going to antique stores, taking photos of inspiring old like illustration or lettering, and then going home and trying to figure out how they did it, how they created it. And then, kind of just spiraled from there over the past, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. I feel like when I doodle words or I doodle letters. And I feel like it's just been a lot of practice, studying letter forms, seeing and feeling out what works, what doesn't work. But I would say look into the past for inspiration. There's so much beautiful stuff out there.
Yeah, thank you. That's great advice.
Okay, so I really like this one. It's very simple, but I love the ampersand. I love this eye. I think this one's really, really cool. I do kind of like the capital or the uppercase version of it as well. Let's see what this looks like with the ampersand.
Yeah, because even if you did the lowercase, it has those low or small descenders like we were talking about in the G's. Yeah, and both of them look really good. The uppercase and the lowercase.
I know. Yeah, so I kind of like both of those. And while I do like the simplicity and like cleanliness of the plus sign, I do think that is a really beautiful ampersand.
Yeah.
So I probably would go with the ampersand in that case.
Cool.
This one, I don't know. I feel like this one might be a little harder to read with these really thin pieces right here.
It feels more clean too, and a little less handmade.
Yep. So this one goes off into the abyss. I feel like by the end of these, because I'm just pulling things off my boards, it's just like a mess.
Insanity. All the land of the discarded ideas. But you got to keep it there because just in case, you never know what might get sparked again.
Exactly.
Voodoo Val is asking if you can give us the names of all of these fonts.
Oh, yes. I would love to. Okay. So this one here that I'm working with right now, this is Pitch Sans Bold.
Pitch?
Okay. Pitch Sans.
Pitch like baseball?
Yep.
Cool.
This one is BN Finland. This is another one by that type designer that I was talking about earlier. So this is one of my new ones that I just purchased. This grouping is Cicero. This one is also by him. I had written down a list of all the ones that I have that are newer so I could try them out.
Yeah, that's so fun.
This one is Moche, M-O-C-H-E.
Oh, okay. M-O-C-H-E.
I think this one is a free font, or I think it's like a donation-based font.
Okay.
But it's available for personal or commercial use.
Nice.
So yeah, that's all of these ones. This was just Garamond.
Okay.
Regular. And then these two were also from BM Nix. So this is Nord, N-O-R-D. And then this one here is Bergen Street, B-E-R-G-E-N Street.
Cool.
So yeah, a lot of these are from him, of course.
Cool.
Okay.
And then can you share with us your Instagram handle? I guess the link on your Behance isn't going out to that. So yeah, it's okay.
I got married in October and I changed my Instagram handle. Thank you. Yeah. And I have not, I don't think I've updated the link anywhere.
It's hard to remember to update all the links when you change something like that. So yeah, what's your Instagram handle if you want to share it?
Yeah, so it's Whitney Nettles.
Okay.
The WHITNEY NETTLES.
Cool.
So
thank you.
Yeah.
Everyone Go follow Whitney.
That's the only place I've actually changed my last name.
Yeah.
I am planning to at some point. It's just a lot of work to actually go through
the whole
all
process
of that. So one day I will be legally Whitney Nettles, but the only place I am right now is on Instagram.
Okay, cool. And then Peter was asking, let me scroll back to it. This was a little while ago. Peter was asking if you have any tips on managing your time as a designer and even, you know, creating personal work or practicing things after your client work. And yeah, if you have any advice on that, I'd love to hear it.
It's definitely not easy. I have been freelancing for over 3 years now, full time, and I can still be very, very bad at time management.
Yes.
Yeah, I think for me, making lists and like prioritizing, like, okay, this is due this day, this is due this day, helps me out a lot. I know that there are software programs that can help you with like managing, organizing, that type of thing. I don't personally use them. I'm very old school with my lists. Like I just like to make notes on my phone or just paper to-do lists.
Yeah.
And I have a calendar that I write on like an old person. But
I do that too. So I get it. Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely, I think trying to work for yourself and manage, or even not working for yourself, but making time for yourself and personal projects, it takes a lot of practice. And even I really struggle with it still sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think project organization, when you have an idea for a personal project, like, and you're excited about it, try to make it happen. The saying of like, strike while the iron is hot.
Yeah.
You know, if I feel like it's much easier to work on things when you're really, really pumped up and excited about them. So if you do get an idea for a personal project, do whatever you can to make it happen. You know, if you need to stay up late a few nights, you know, try and do it. I know that like it's really important to make sure that you're taking care of yourself and getting sleep too. Like, you don't want to, there's a fine line between like pushing through and getting something done because you're excited about it and burning out. And that's going to look different for everyone. Like, I feel like I don't have a good answer or like a one size fits all answer. You're just going to have to, you know, see what works best for you, for your workflow, take breaks when you need them so that you can refuel and reset and be ready to like work really hard the next week or something, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's good advice to go for it when you can, and then know yourself to know when you need a break. And there's going to be seasons of life, seasons of freelance, all that kind of stuff too, where sometimes you have a lot of free time to work on those projects and sometimes you just don't. And I think recognizing that is important too.
Yeah.
Ooh, Val went through and linked all of those fonts.
Wow.
Thank you. That's amazing. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's it's a hard balance, and I don't know. Personal projects though I think are so important. I think creating the work that you want to be hired for, and even just practicing your process, refining your technique, learning what you like, what you don't like is really, really important in any sort of creative field.
Absolutely. I think too, with like anything that you want to get better at, like you're not going to get hired for something that you don't know how to do necessarily. So yeah, you'll just have to make your own projects, make personal projects. If you want to be better at lettering or illustration and you're not getting hired for those projects, make your own projects until you'd have work to show.
Yeah.
And then you can get hired for those projects.
Yeah. And that's also why the daily creative challenges are so great too, because a lot of times you're going to be playing around with tools that maybe you wouldn't have used before or even known about, and you get to practice different techniques and then you get feedback. So yeah, anything that you can do like that, where you're just constantly practicing, working on things, so valuable.
Sure. Does anyone know, is handmade one word or two?
Great question. Let's ask the chat. What do you guys think? Handmade, one word or two words? I want to say it's one word, but now I'm questioning.
I feel like it's one of those things where it might be both or like hyphenated or yeah.
There's so many options. Let's see what everyone says. We'll take a poll.
Love it.
The value of the chat.
Yes. Yes, I think I want spaced out a bit more. So yeah, I'm just kind of typing out a few of these little options of like, you know, subtext. I know that she wants like Milwaukee, Wisconsin tied in here somehow. We didn't really talk about if she wants ceramics or that in part of the logo mark at all. So I might make a few options with it, a few options without it, just to kind of see what she likes best. And again, I think it's important to have several different options for her to use, because the one that she puts on the bottom of her mugs will probably just be the logo type, but the one that she wants on her website or stamps on her bags might have some of this extra additional text on it.
Yeah, especially since her name is, you know, it's kind of unique. I feel like somebody might not know what she does right away just by seeing her name.
Exactly.
The chat is saying it's one word.
One word. Okay.
Yes. Everyone has Googled it
Thank
for
you,
us.
everyone.
And let us know. Thank you so much. That's what I was thinking too. But then, you know, when you start thinking about that stuff and then you question it and you're like, wait, do I even know how to spell? I don't know.
Well, it's one of those things where after you look at a word for too long, it starts to look weird.
Exactly.
Just looking at all of these, I was like, wait, did I spell her name wrong? When I was looking at all of this, I was like, oops, nope, I didn't.
Yes. Aisha says, when working on brand personality and logo design, I personally go on and on and on and on, and then run my eye through all of them, select the top 3, and then select the best one. How do you know when to stop designing or when something is finished?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think when I'm starting a branding project and I'm going kind of through the phase that we're at now, usually it's much more extensive options than this, but for the sake of time, you know, I've only gone through maybe 10 options here today.
Yeah.
But I will do kind of the same, you know, I will play around with maybe 20, 30 sketches or like typing out different fonts to see what I like. And then kind of pull my favorite 5 or 6 from that and really refine those down. And then from those 5 or 6, refine down to 3 or 4, and then deliver those to the client. I feel like I've just kind of learned over the years that there's not really ever a good way to step away from a design or like know when it's done. But I think just in working for myself over the past few years, I have learned that, you know, as long as I am happy with it, or at least like 95% happy with it, it is done. I'm sure there's always things that you would see and could go back and redo. But it's important to just finish something and step away.
Mhm.
Because I feel like us designers we're perfectionists.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be something else that you could do. There probably are projects where I've spent like 20 additional hours after I've said that it was done and gone back and just like nitpicked and gone through, which is good, but I also need to sleep
Yes.
and work on other projects. So yeah, I think I try to stay within like a time frame that I've created for myself for each project. Sometimes that'll be more, sometimes that'll be less. Yeah, I think that kind of just comes with time though, like knowing when something is done or when to step away.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Ariel says done is better than perfect. And I stop usually at the deadline. I think that's true. Like, yeah. We're always going to be our harshest critics too. So you're probably always going to be seeing things in your own work that can be fixed that nobody else is even going to notice or see.
Yeah, absolutely. That was something I was teaching these past couple of semesters, college juniors and seniors. And when it came time to turn in projects, that was something that I had to tell a few students, like, you know what, turning it in, even though you're not happy with it, is better than not turning it in, or like just step away from it. Like, done is better than perfect. Just turn it in, turn something in. Next time it will be even better. Like when you go to do something.
Yeah, absolutely. Eskin Amelia was asking about if you could explain artboard, canvas sizes, how to export, which I think we'll get into exporting later on in the stream or possibly even tomorrow. But do you work with a particular canvas size when you're working on logos like this, or did you just do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, I pretty much always, when I'm working on branding work, I always just open up a file with like several 11 by 17 inch artboards. Since it all is all vectors, you know, I can scale it to whatever I want later on. So yeah, once I export them, I'll make sure that they're very large. Like I'll export them at like 2000 by 2000 pixels, so that they're large for whatever is needed. Excuse me. But yeah, while I'm working like this, just a basic paper size is what I typically do. Just so I've got space to kind of move around. You know, I'll of course pull things off of my artboards too.
Of course. Peter asked if you still read graphic design books. Do you have any book recommendations?
I guess I haven't necessarily read any lately. I feel like I have a lot of them on my bookshelf, like ones that I've just bought or collected over the years. I get one thing that I look at more so than design books, I guess, is communication arts, the publication. So I subscribe to that and I find it very inspiring. You know, both design, illustration, photography, all of their different annuals that they release. That's something that I find really inspiring. But yeah, I guess books, not necessarily. Like I said, I'll buy them when I come across them just to like have a collection of them. But I feel like I don't pick them up as often as I should, or I'll flip through them when I buy them and then just like collect them on my shelf.
Yeah. Carla asked if you typically create a mood board for the client before sketching, or do you just go straight into sketching and designing?
I will sometimes create a mood board. Typically, I try not to put other people's work on my mood boards, or
Hmm.
like I just won't make mood boards that contain other people's work. So it either
Yeah.
contains my past work that they like,
Mm-hmm.
or I
Mm-hmm.
ask them to send me examples of my work that they like.
Yeah.
Or if I do mood boards, it's more like textures and photos and
Mm-hmm.
colors and like just it's more actual like mood
Mood versus
board.
like here's designs that,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Because yeah, I never want to feel like they're asking me to create someone else's work
Yes.
or mimic someone else's work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, since this was a friend of mine, we more so like I'm at her studio all the time.
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with her work. I actually have a bunch of photos that I pulled from her
Nice.
Instagram. I'm actually going to pull a couple of these into Illustrator just to get some colors from. But yeah, so I kind of made a mood board without actually making a mood board,
Mm-hmm.
just because I am, very inspired by her textures, her colors, all very natural. If you
Mm-hmm.
can see here, so most of her work contains just like this natural speckling in the
Yes.
clay. So that's really what inspired, some of these
Mm-hmm.
patterns that I really want to use or textures. But yeah, these photos that I have kind of pulled from her Instagram will definitely or have definitely kind of been floating around in my mind as like mood board type
Right.
things. Because I want her branding to feel like it fits well
Mm-hmm.
with these things. So yeah, throughout, I'll kind of throw some things together to see if they feel like they belong together.
Yeah.
Um, I would really like to create a couple more illustration elements for her as well. Maybe just some really simple like line drawings of some of the classic shapes of her pieces that
Mm-hmm.
she could use on her website or on her print materials or on her, tissue paper or something. So yeah, that's something that I would like to create for her as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I love that idea of taking inspiration from her work directly because that's who you're designing for, and then for other clients pulling it from their work or
Mhm.
from textures, colors, all of that, because that's really the easiest way to avoid even just accidentally copying another designer's work. I know when you look at other people's work, it's easy for it just to kind of get stuck in your head and to not um you can almost just like without even intending to, you just can't think of anything else. It's just kind of
Mhm.
there. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, I think I'm going to, when I talk to her about color, that was
Mhm.
part of our conversation that we had as well. And she really didn't have a strong opinion
Yeah.
of color.
Okay.
And I don't know that I'm going to use much color in her branding, anyways. If I
Yeah.
do, it will probably be a lot of these natural
Yeah.
tones.
I love those tones. So
I do
pretty.
too. I love
So cozy.
working in really neutral tones.
Yeah.
She loves her garden. She spends a ton of time outside. So maybe
Mm.
even like a really pretty emerald green, I might try and
Yes.
get in there. But so one thing that's interesting about her branding, um, like her main needs for her logo mark are, like we mentioned earlier, a stamp that would go on a brown paper bag. So that, like, I don't even need to think about color for that because
Right.
the ink pad,
Yeah.
whatever color ink pad, that is the color.
Mhm.
And then for the stamp that goes on the bottom of her mug, that's just an imprint of a shape.
Yeah,
So
so it's the
that,
color of the
yeah,
the clay. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, there's really not an actual need for a lot of color, which makes this a really interesting project.
Yeah.
But I do want to introduce some color into like, a business card, postcard, packaging materials. But I will probably try and stay like within these really natural shades. I might pull one of these in and get like a deep green or a deep blue. I think it'd be a nice kind of just juxtaposition, because a lot of her work is really light and bright. But I do think it needs something really deep and rich to kind of ground it a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, nice little accent color that kind of balances out all those neutral tones.
And typically when I'm picking colors for branding, so as you can see here, I'm just like eyedropper color selecting from these photos. But for the actual brand colors, like I'll put together a color palette that has, hex codes, CMYK, RGB. So once I get a color palette that I'm pretty happy with, I'll actually go and find comparable Pantone swatches for them. So that there are like Pantone codes for them if they need those. That's something that's happened in projects that I've worked on before where I don't do that. And I've just like, eyedropper tool and it doesn't have a Pantone code. And they're like, oh, we're printing this one thing. What's the Pantone code for my color? And I'm like, it doesn't have one. That's not a Pantone color. So yeah, I've just learned, it makes it easier in case they do ever need one to just start off, like make sure that you do provide that for them. It's going to be easier.
Yeah, for sure. Vudival says she loves these colors. I do
Thank
too.
you.
They are beautiful. Carla had asked, what do you include in a typical branding package, or does it vary from client to client?
So I always provide 3 options, like 3 tiers, I guess. And this really comes into play for how to price projects too. Like I think it's really smart, no matter what type of project someone is coming to you for, always have options. So no matter what their budget is, they can hire you. Obviously you need to get paid a fair rate. But the cheapest option would be the least amount of work. And then the medium option. So with my branding packages, a basic branding package would be like 1 or 2 like logo marks, colors, fonts, and a business card. So pretty just like
bare bones.
They're like, I'm just starting out like my own small business. I just need like a logo to put on my website and a business card. And then beyond that, it'll expand into like packaging. So I guess what I'm doing for Kim would be kind of like the medium package, where there will probably be 3 or 4 final brand marks. So like a main logo type, maybe a monogram or a submark, a full like badge, I guess, that has like handmade in Milwaukee, all these other kind of subtext. And then maybe another mark that has a piece of illustration on it. And then that would come with, a postcard, a business card, stickers, packaging tape, kind of some of those extra elements. And then a more full, robust package would be like, if they need full packaging, like if I were creating custom boxes that fit each of her products, and like, custom packaging for individual SKU items, that would be like a full branding and packaging package.
Cool. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Kirsten asked if you have a favorite project that you've worked on And then follow-up question, have you done any fun personal projects that are somewhat different than your typical look, palette, aesthetic? So I guess the first question, do you have a favorite project that you have worked on?
Oh, that's so hard.
It's like choosing between children or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is super, super hard to say. I think one recently that I've done that I really, really loved. It's the first one on my website.
Yeah.
It was for a local business and she sells bagels. She makes
I was gonna mention
bagels.
that. That was one of my favorites on your site because it's bagels. Like, how fun is that?
Oh, that is what I used for the, like, I guess not advertisement, but for the announcement for my Adobe Live.
Oh, cool.
It's like my headshot and then
the bagels.
The bagels. Yeah. That was a fun one just because I kind of got to run free with it. It was actually really sweet. The boyfriend of the woman who owns the bagel place commissioned those from me for her birthday because she loves my work.
Oh my God.
So yeah, it was a really sweet, like it was a surprise.
How special.
It was super fun.
That's really cool. That's so fun. What a sweet boyfriend.
I know. He's great.
Yeah.
So yeah, but projects that are kind of outside of what I typically do.
Yeah. Have you done any personal work that's kind of outside, or do you stick within that same style for all of your personal work?
I mean, I feel like I try to branch out. I mean,
yeah,
people could probably still tell that it's my work, but I feel like it's like way different.
Sure.
I don't know. Even just scrolling back through my own personal Instagram over the past 6 months, I'm like, oh, I really tried something edgy here. Even though it still looks like my work. It was like, I maybe was working with colors that I don't typically work with or something. I don't know. I feel like it all still feels like
you. Yeah. If anyone wants to go see the Bagel Project, Budaval just dropped the link to Whitney's website in the chat. It's witand.co. So go check it out. It's really fun. I loved it. So
thank you.
Yeah. Made me want to eat some bagels for sure.
All right. So we've got, I don't know, so many good colors I've been picking. I feel like trying to narrow it down is going to be so hard. They are, I mean, they're quite muted, which, a lot of these are quite muted. But yeah, I love this speckled glaze texture and these colors. So I might try to kind of take my speckle that I made earlier and replicate that. So I've got, that's a pretty close color. And then go grab my speckles. Let's see. So yeah, this is something that I feel like would make such fun, like packaging tape or the back of a postcard, something fun. Let's do it like a brown speckle. So yeah, I feel like that this could get used for something. Could even do something that's a lot more subtle. So let's see. Maybe like a white and a cream.
Oh, yeah.
And then we could put her logo, whatever I end up, or whatever she ends up choosing for her logo.
That's so pretty.
So like, I guess we'll just say this one for now. But yeah, then that could be, maybe this is like postcard shaped like that. So that could start to be something. I feel like my brain and my process while I am working on these things is just so all over the place. But I'm like, I haven't even created a final logo yet, and I'm already like mocking
Jumping
things up. I'm
ahead.
like,
Yeah.
I should try this.
But I think that can, I mean, everyone works differently. And I think that that
Mhm.
can help you to then get to the final logo because you're kind of seeing it in action, seeing what things
Totally.
maybe need to be adjusted and how it's
Mhm.
working with the overall brand. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm gonna try this one.
Aisha asks, is it normal to unintentionally get stuck in a particular style or theme of work and then find it hard to shake it off or unlearn it after that project ends? I struggle with this a lot personally. Um, do you kind of have tips for how to get yourself out of one project and kind of rewire your brain for the next one?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I do feel like I get hooked on certain fonts a lot,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of another reason why I was trying out all those new fonts today. Because I'm like, I
Yeah.
feel like I use the same typefaces for so many projects,
Mm-hmm.
especially personal projects. I'm like, oh, I
Yeah.
need to make something for myself. And I use the same like two or three all the
Right.
time. Um, so I feel like, I guess for me, I get stuck in a font rut.
Okay.
So doing something like scrolling through Adobe fonts, syncing some new fonts that I haven't used before, and like I will actually have to write them down on a list so I remember what they're called and like
Yes.
remember that I have new fonts to use.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, you can. It's it's tricky to say like, oh, go scroll through Instagram or Pinterest because like we mentioned earlier, you don't want to like attach yourself too closely to something
Mm-hmm.
and then accidentally replicate it.
Yeah.
But those places can be really great for inspiration if you do feel like you're stuck in a rut
Mm-hmm.
and obviously you need to take your own interpretation of something that you see. Whatever they say, like 3 elements of separation or
Yeah.
3 degrees of separation, um, to make something like your own.
Yeah.
But yeah, those places can be great, even like we were talking about earlier, design books, if you have them,
Mm-hmm.
just to kind of spark something. If you feel like you are just kind of stuck in a rut or designing
Yeah.
the same thing over and over.
Yeah. Great advice. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Peter asks if you follow any color rules or do you just pick colors by eye?
Um, I I love color, and I've never really been one to like use color palette selectors or anything. I
Yeah.
learned all the rules and like tertiary and complementary
Uh-huh.
in college. But yeah, I pretty much just do it by eye now. I do a lot of color picking like I just did here, where I will start with reference photos.
Mm-hmm.
I take a lot of photos when I'm out,
Yeah.
outside in nature, in an antique store, at my friend's house, when I'm like, ooh, those colors are so good together. And then I'll color pick from the photo, and then I might need to like adjust to make them actually look good, like in a flat like palette like this. But yeah, I think it's super important to know the rules.
Yes.
But once you know them, you can break them. Yeah. Exactly.
Alexis asks if you do a branding project and use fonts that cost money,
Mm-hmm.
do you buy the font and then include it in the invoice, or how does that work?
So in my statement of work or my contract that I send out, I state that I do not include font licenses in their branding project fee.
Okay.
So I, kind of make that known up front. And then I'll tell them, I try mostly to not work with like super, super expensive fonts for other people's projects.
Yeah.
So most of the typefaces that I'm using have, they're like $10 to $50 fonts.
Yeah.
And then
Very
I'll provide the client with those links so that they can download them and purchase them themselves.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. That's also something that, like, when I first started freelancing and designing, I had no idea about that. I was like, oh yeah,
The things they don't teach you in school. It's all those, all those little business things that you don't really learn until suddenly you have to learn because you have a situation where it comes up.
Yep.
Everyone's loving what you're doing. Arabella says, okay, loving that speckle texture, seeing that speckle texture in that way. So pretty. And then Voodoo Val says, OMG, the text up there is so good. This is such a satisfying project to watch come together. Well done, Whitney. Seriously. And then Voodoo Val also says, have you ever used Adobe Capture to color pick? You just open the photos in Capture, sample the colors, and save a color palette directly to one of your Creative Cloud libraries. Then it's ready in Photoshop or Illustrator. It's instant and easy.
That's so brilliant. I have used it before and I always forget about it.
Yeah.
So I will
forget
make
about
a
it
note
too.
to do that.
So thank you. Because that would be great to do even with like one of these photos that you have to pull it up.
Absolutely.
And be able to pull a palette directly from that to get those exact colors.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah, if you're just joining us, Whitney Anderson is here designing a brand refresh for a ceramics company. We're working on logos. She's doing a little bit of color and playing around with some fonts. And tomorrow, we're going to take this even further. So make sure that you join us tomorrow as well. And you can watch the replay of this if you are just joining us now and kind of catching the last 30 minutes or so. So you'll be able to go back and see it all from the beginning. So don't worry.
Absolutely.
Cool. And if you are watching on YouTube, come over to Behance so that we can see your chat, your comments, your questions, and make sure that we answer those. So come over to behance.net/live. I'm loving all these questions that we've gotten so far. So great.
This is great. I liked this one a lot. I might try and play with this one a little bit more. I feel like using this as the subtext is a little bit too much. So I might try and find something a little bit more simple. I like it. I love this, but I think for this use, not so much. That might be a little thin. Sweet Sands is one that I use for everything that I design for myself. So
it's really nice. So you mentioned school. How did you go to school for graphic design?
I did. Yeah.
Okay.
I went to the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee here in Milwaukee. Graduated in 2015. And I got a like traditional in-house design job shortly after graduating, and did that for about 2 years while doing freelance work on the side, and finally got to the point where I had enough freelance work coming in where I could quit my full-time job. And that took about 2 years to kind of gain enough momentum, enough like word of mouth, posting my stuff on Instagram, that I was getting enough clients consistently to quit my job.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
So cool. Carla says, or is asking, how long does a project like this typically take you?
I would say branding projects usually like 40-ish hours start to finish.
Yeah.
I'm typically, so, that's like one work week.
Uh-huh.
I'm typically, though, working on multiple projects at once.
Yes.
And, like waiting for feedback and
Mm-hmm.
all that. So while it might be 1 week solid of like actual design work, usually the branding process for me will take about 4 weeks,
Right.
just with all the rounds of revisions and feedback and,
Mm-hmm.
getting final files set up, all of that stuff. So yeah, doing this, like I did some prep work before we got here today. And then, you've seen like an hour and a half of design work, I guess. I'll
Yeah.
probably do a few things tonight and then we'll
Mm-hmm.
come back tomorrow and, talk about what I did overnight. I might try and create a few little illustrations tonight.
Yeah.
And kind of we can apply those to some things tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably try and narrow down, kind of maybe make a different script that's a little bit more legible, for a really small size. But yeah, I'll probably work on this for a couple more hours later
Yeah.
tonight, and then we'll
Yeah.
come back and see like what I did, since today.
Yeah. So definitely come back tomorrow. And
Mhm.
right now you're talking and designing at the same time too. So your
Yeah,
brain is kind of split.
I know. I'm just
So
like moving things around the screen. I'm
yeah.
like, I'm not even doing anything right
Trying to
now.
answer
No.
questions and yeah. So but yeah, that's really helpful to know kind of generally how long it would take you.
Mhm.
Um yeah.
And that'll be more, if it is a branding package that
Mhm.
has more items in it, or if I'm creating a set of like really, really complex illustrations,
Yeah.
that will be a much longer time, obviously, than just
Yes, for sure.
simple. Yeah.
Do you usually do your illustration work in Illustrator as well?
So I do a lot kind of like on paper
Yeah. Oh,
as we
cool.
did. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I'll do that. I have started using Adobe Fresco. So
Uh-huh.
I will sometimes work on an iPad,
Yes. Have you
for
used
illustration work.
Illustrator on iPad
I
yet?
haven't yet.
Okay, it's
Mm-mm.
really fun. It's really
I'm like
fun.
a little intimidated, but I'll need to
Yeah.
sit down and do it for sure.
Yeah. Once you start playing around with it, it's not too bad. It's simple. It's simpler than on desktop right now
Okay.
because they're still adding things and um so yeah. So once you start playing around with it, I'm sure you'll be totally fine. It's really
Yeah.
fun. So and
Awesome.
you can go back and forth really easily between the desktop version and the
Yeah.
iPad version. So
Okay.
you can be able to bring it into the desktop. Maybe you're adding type or something like that. It's a little bit easier. And then you can, drag it over to the iPad and add some illustration work.
Yeah. That
So
sounds amazing.
yeah. Um, what are your top favorite tools in Illustrator that you most often use? Ken Amelia was asking.
Ooh. What do I use in Illustrator? I feel like I use it even though I've been using it for 10 years, I probably use like 10% of the capabilities that are
Yeah.
actually on it. One thing that I was just doing, I guess, so with these, I feel like having a little bit of an arc is nice.
Mhm.
So going up here we'll do it with one of these. If you didn't, I guess I wasn't talking through any of this,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
so taking text, going into effect and warp. So there's all of these different options.
So fun.
I like just a little bit of an arc so you can, make that as dramatic or
Mhm.
subtle as you want to. I feel like it adds a nice little element instead of having all of your text be, straight
Yeah.
across.
Especially like something handmade. I feel like
Mhm,
that's really fun.
yeah.
Cool. That's super helpful.
So that's one tool, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. One tool that
I
you
don't know. I use the
Yeah.
pen tool a lot.
Uh-huh. The good old pen tool.
Good old pen tool. The blob brush. I like the blob brush. I
Yeah.
don't know why, but it's a good one. Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like I'm old school now. I'm like I don't even feel that old, but I feel like I see younger designers, or like when I was teaching this past semester, they'll do something and I'm like, "Whoa, how'd you do that?"
Yeah. I think it's really easy to kind of just use the same tools over and over and kind of you get
Yeah.
comfortable and you get
Yeah.
used to it. So, yeah, I relate to that. It's really easy to do that. And then, but I think it can be really inspiring to learn how to use a new tool and have
Oh,
something new in your
absolutely.
toolbox. But it takes
Mhm.
time, it's like you have to sit down and actually learn how to use it. So it's kind of
Yeah.
hard to make that time sometimes.
So I like what's happening here a lot. I think that's
Hmm.
really cute. So I'll keep that in the options.
Yeah, it's
Something else I was,
beautiful.
thank you, going to mention, like kind of what you were just saying. I think as a freelancer too, and being like working in a vacuum,
Yeah.
essentially, you
Yeah.
do need to be really good about teaching yourself new skills. Like
Yeah.
that's something I could be better about,
It's
taking
hard.
Skillshare classes, watching YouTube videos, watching other Adobe Live videos
Yes.
to utilize and to learn those other skills where if you were working in an environment with other designers like at a
Mhm.
job, you
Mhm.
probably would learn from them. They would show you new
Yes.
things, but working on your own or on for yourself by yourself, um, it really does like it you have to make it a point to teach yourself new
Mhm.
things or to learn new things.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, you can watch all of the Adobe, the the reruns of all of the streams on Behance, which is super valuable because then you can go back, you can want to watch them slower, you can rewind, you can pause, which is super great. And so even when Adobe Live is offline, you can watch. And they're also hosting more and more streamers on Behance, kind of separate from these kinds of live streams. So, yeah, definitely check that out as a resource. Super, super helpful. And you're so right. It's hard to when you get comfortable and it's hard to keep learning. But I think it's really important. It's something that will help us grow, help us stay, in touch with the programs as they change because there's always new updates to all the programs that you use and
Mm-hmm.
to just be able to work well for your clients. Like, yeah, it's very important. So
Absolutely.
great points. Cool. We have a little bit longer, so if anyone has any additional questions for Whitney, feel free to ask them now so that we make sure that we can fit them in. And then also make sure to join tomorrow. We're going to be back here, same time at noon Pacific time. And we're going to be working even more on this brand and bringing it more to life, maybe getting a little bit into some of the other elements that you'd mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
like the bag or maybe some tissue paper, some fun things like that. We'll see how
Yeah,
it happens. We'll see how it goes. But
absolutely.
yeah, I'm excited to see this all come together even more tomorrow.
Thank you. It's been really fun.
Yeah, so
It's
much fun.
it's so interesting working in this way.
Mhm.
Just because I'm typically working on my own
Yeah,
without
by
without
yourself
people watching.
without people
Uh,
watching. Yeah. Yeah,
so
usually.
I feel like I just have to be more conscious of my decisions too, because I'm like,
Yeah.
oh no, what if I try something and it looks bad and everyone sees it? But that's just part of the process.
Yes, I
It's
think
just,
that's great if it happens because then
yeah,
it happens to all of us, right? So
yeah.
then everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's not just me. Good. Like,
Hmm.
sometimes you do have to workshop things until they get to where you want them to be. And sometimes they don't look great in the process. And that's okay.
Yeah,
It's how it goes,
yeah,
it's how you get to where, it's supposed to be.
absolutely.
Yeah. Hmm.
So yeah, another thing to consider, I guess, things that I'm thinking about and like marks is I have done branding suites before where there are almost not two identities, but there's like a logo type, but then
Hmm.
there's also maybe a badge but the fonts are different. But it still feels super cohesive. So trying to find that really fine line too. Like even if I were to go with this option where the Covet and Ginger is lowercase, but then, you know, if she wanted a little CNG mark for her bottom of her mugs, but the lowercase CNG like doesn't look great, but the uppercase one does. It's like,
it
well,
still
can
goes.
I use that? Yeah. So
That's cool.
just kind of looking at things together like that. Creating, you know, a system, a family, knowing those rules and knowing when you can break them, I guess.
Yes. Carla asked, how did you get into teaching, and did you always want to do that?
I always thought I did not want to teach. Because I feel like I know how to do something, but I feel like I don't know how to explain things very well. Like, I feel like I would be better at showing something than like, or just like doing something than teaching it. But I have done, you know, I've done a handful of workshops in the past. And then this past year, when I got approached to teach, like as an adjunct professor, I guess my thought was just like, what could go wrong kind of thing?
Like,
or
why
like,
not?
Why not? Like, this is a good opportunity. And the things that we were going to be, or that I was supposed to be teaching, I was really comfortable with. So the items in the curriculum, I felt like I had a good handle on them. So I felt comfortable like being asked to teach those things. But yeah, I guess I was always very scared to teach. Like when I was in school and friends of mine were going to school for like art education, I was like, oh no, that's not something I'd ever be interested in. But actually I kind of was surprised. And I mean, this was not like teaching higher education, it like is different because they're adults. Like I wasn't teaching little kids about art. Like I'm teaching 21-year-olds who care and who want to be there.
They're excited about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of fell into it just by knowing, you know, people in the community here, people at the art school. Someone gave someone my name and they reached out and I was like, sure, let's do it.
That's so cool. I love that attitude of just taking it and seeing what happens. And then something like that, you can do it for a semester and see how it goes, and you don't have to be necessarily committed long term. I think that's great to try new experiences and see what you like.
Absolutely.
Do you design in CMYK or RGB for something like this?
CMYK. This is, I rarely ever design for web. I guess really the only time would be, I mean, people will use it on their website, I guess, the logo on their website. But yeah, typically most things will end up in print more so than web. So yeah, I design in CMYK. When I am saving out their color palettes, like I will give them the RGB and the hex codes for all of their colors, so that they have them if they want them or need them. But yeah, I design in CMYK.
Cool. Thank you. And then Jeremy asked, what would be the best projects to put in our portfolio if you're a graphic design student about to graduate?
That is fantastic. The class that I taught was portfolio and professional practice.
Oh, well then you have great advice on this.
Yes.
You asked the right person.
Are you ready for school?
Okay. Yes, let's go to school.
I would say, so the number one thing that I tell students, or that I told my students, is at your age, at your level of like just coming out of college, the main or one of the most important things is to have a good like variety in there. I definitely think that you can specialize as you grow in the field. Like if you're like, oh, I definitely only want to work on branding work, or I only want to design like mobile websites designed for mobile, what, you know, so you can have a preference or a specialty. And maybe you include mostly that stuff in your portfolio. But I think it's really, really important finding those first couple of jobs to show that you have a good range, you have a good handle of all of the basic skills of design. So you're strong with typography, strong with color, you know, just layout, composition. Make sure that you're including projects that show that you have a solid understanding of all of those things. And yeah, just showing off a good range of work, different types of projects. If you have worked on personal projects while you've been in college, include those. Like it doesn't just have to be projects you worked on in college. If you had an internship or did freelance projects, include some of those as well. But yeah, I would say just make sure that you're showing kind of that full skill set. Because I guess you don't really know what specifically a hiring manager is looking for. So you just want to make sure that you're covering all of your bases there. Yeah, I guess that's the main thing in a nutshell.
Very helpful. Distilling the whole semester into
just one. That's all you needed.
That's it. No, I'm sure there's so much more. Yeah, Voodoo Val says people are going to hire you for what you show. So if you have work in your portfolio for the kind of work you hate to do, you should think about eventually replacing that with things that spark joy, which is true. Yeah, if you have things that you don't like, that's, you know, ideally keep that out of your portfolio if you're able to, unless it's something that you're willing to take on here and there. And yeah, absolutely. Yeah, at first posting what you have is great, but eventually your portfolio should reflect the kind of career that you want to have.
Totally.
Absolutely. And that takes time. That's sometimes you figure out what you actually want to do along the way. So maybe right when you graduate, you're still not sure, you still have a lot of variety. And then as you work more and more, you can kind of narrow down and figure out what your style is, what you actually like, and refine your portfolio from there. Yeah, we have just a couple more minutes. So any last questions, feel free to ask them. And yeah, we are about to wrap up pretty soon. It went by so fast.
I know it did.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, did I even get anything done?
You got so much done. Look at this. Look at all these artboards. Are you kidding me?
Oh my, yeah, let's zoom out.
You did a lot. Look at that.
What a mess. This will be all organized and ready to jump back in for tomorrow.
It's going to be so fun. I'm excited to see where it's going to end up.
Me too.
So great.
Okay. So yeah, I think I'll probably narrow it down to kind of a few directions that we've been working on here. Maybe make a couple illustrations tonight that we can include. And yeah, we'll work more on, I think I'll narrow down this color palette tonight as well.
Yeah.
So that we've got a strong starting point for tomorrow too.
Is there a typical number of colors that you would usually include in something like this? Or does it just depend on that particular project?
I guess I would try to stay less than like 6. And usually 2 of those are like some type of really light, like a creamy color. So my like white and then my black, which aren't typically white and black. So this is like a super, super dark blue or a super, super dark green. So that would be like my white and black. So some type of cream or tan or light gray. And then probably 4 others. Sometimes it's only like 4 colors total.
Yeah.
So maybe like, that or something that, and that would be the full color palette. But
Right.
I like to often have some type of other like
Oh, I
complementary
love that.
color that is not just monochromatic. It just depends on the brand though. Yeah. Like sometimes it would be a very monochromatic, even like, I don't know. I mean, these are really, I
Very
wouldn't put
similar.
those 2 together because they're so
Yeah.
close in color. But yeah, like sometimes it will be a very monochromatic palette like that. And other times it'll have a little bit more of a, I don't know, variety.
Yeah.
Not that, but you get it.
Sure. Yeah. And then how do you convey to printers the right Pantone colors?
Sure. So I guess as long as I have the correct code, and it depends on, so a lot of clients that I work with a letterpress printer a lot. And then some of my clients go and letterpress their business cards or something, which is a different, so those are uncoated Pantone colors. And so they'll come off differently, obviously being printed, letterpress printed, than they will on screen. So that can get a little tricky, and I'll usually just work with the printer, look at proofs or try and find as similar of a color as possible to their brand color.
Yeah.
But yeah, often, like not most, but a lot of the clients that I work with don't even ever end up needing their Pantone colors, because they'll like have their cards digitally printed. So it'll just be in CMYK. But yeah, if things are getting letterpress printed or very specific packaging will sometimes need that Pantone code, then, I'll work with whoever the printer is, or I'll send the client all of their Pantone codes so that they can give that to the printer.
Cool. Very helpful. Thank you.
Of course.
And one more question. Carla asked, do you name your artboards before you export? I recently found out about that and it's been great.
I guess I never export my artboards. I will like save my files separately. When I get to the point of saving out final files, I'll just save them out separately, like on separate files. So yeah, I did not know that, but maybe that would speed up my process more.
Yeah, that could be super helpful. Yeah, I've named them in order to then easily reorder them, because you can like, for example, if I'm designing something that has more of like a sequence, then you can rename them and then you can easily like drag them around into the order that you want.
Artboard. Okay. Wow. So cool. All right.
So that's really helpful.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a ton of artboards for some reason.
Yeah.
Usually something like this, I mean, you only have a couple, so it's not going to be too crazy, but yeah. Cool. Yeah. Learn something new every day, huh?
Absolutely. I feel like, the last time that I was on Adobe Live, I feel like I learned things from people in the chat too. It's great.
That's part of what makes the chat so great, is they have so much insight and there's so many different people there. So like we said before in the very beginning, there's so many different ways to do the same thing. So it's really cool when you're doing something and then someone is like, oh, you can also do it this way. And then you learn. So we all learn from each other, which is part of what makes this community so great.
Absolutely.
How do you get the Pantone codes? Going back to Pantone colors.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you have a Pantone book or do you just get them from Illustrator?
I get them from Illustrator. So once I have like kind of a general palette that I want to go with, I will go and pull up the color book, CMYK. So I will pull this up and kind of just pick swatches that are close to the palette that I want to go with, so that I can make sure that the colors that I am using in the final branding are Pantone colors with like a Pantone color code.
Cool. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Let's see. Yeah, so everyone make sure to come back and join us again tomorrow. Do you want to let us know a little bit about what you're going to be working on just for a second so you get a little highlight of what your plans are for tomorrow?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm going to wrap up some things tonight, clean all this stuff up. So tomorrow I will be coming in with finalized color palette, a couple final-ish logo marks to play around with. And we'll be applying those more to like print materials. I'll be doing tape, a tissue paper. So we'll be going over creating a perfect repeatable pattern, so that you can, just create a little swatch, but then you can expand that over a full sheet of tissue paper.
Perfect.
Yeah, that and maybe more. We'll see what we have time for,
Yes.
what we run into.
Cool.
But yeah.
Well, I'm so excited. I can't wait. So make sure to come back and join us tomorrow. It's going to be so fun. Stay tuned. After this, there is an XD Daily Creative Challenge, and then there is going to be a draw along with Kyle Webster at 2:30 Pacific. And make sure that you join a little bit early tomorrow at 11:30. If you join, you can catch the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge with Paul Trainee, which is going to be great as well. And so we will see you guys here tomorrow. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, everyone.